You see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor, Dean Obeidallah. So, Dean...
Watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, do you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles. And you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obeidallah Show is on live right here on SiriusXM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the resistance. Tuesday, October 16th. We're live for the next 3 hours. I'm Dean Obeidallah, hoping to be your MBFF on Twitter at Dean Obeidallah, Facebook.com/Dean of Radio, where you can check out live stream of the monologue. We have guests in studio tonight, 2 of them back-to-back hours. So hopefully we can live stream that. We'll have Rula Jibril, foreign policy expert, and Danny Savalas in the third hour, MSNBC legal expert. So 21 days, 3 weeks from today, we will be sitting here waiting for the polls to close to start talking about results of this election. And if we do not want to be disappointed, if we do not want to have regrets and look back and say, you know what, we could have changed the country. And you tell your children or grandchildren one day, your family, what you didn't do to save the country, it'll be too late 3 weeks from today. But from now to then, you've got a chance. It's like the Ghost of Christmas Future. Is it too late to save Christmas? It's not. You can save Christmas. Register in the states that still allow registration and vote. And there's early voting already began. We covered it yesterday, a bunch of states. Georgia, Ohio, numerous states, early voting's out there. We are getting there. Look, we need a Congress that stands up to Donald Trump's corruption. We watch what he's doing with Saudi. Trump is putting America for sale. Any country that's helped him in the past or will help him in the future, he has a different standard. We've never had a president like that, honestly. We've had presidents that have liked one country more than the other for whatever reason, but not because they personally profited off it, but we have that with Donald Trump. And we have a GOP Congress that is beyond silent. They are complicit. The GOP Congress is complicit in Donald Trump's corruption, and there's only one way to stop it. And it's the easiest way possible. We vote. November 6th, it's so easy. Go on a booth, click. Take your country back. Click, click, click. Take the country back. That's what we're going to do, step by step. We're going to take the House. I hope it's by a huge wave, but I don't care. We need 23 seats. I don't care if it's by 24. We have all the chairs of every committee is ours. All the subpoena powers ours. All the agenda setting ours. And maybe the Senate. Tough with the Senate. I just wish the map was different. I wish the entire Senate was up this year. We would win it easily. But it's just every 2 years, 33 Senate seats are up, and it just happens to be the way it falls this time. Doesn't favor us much, but we'll see. Polls are getting tighter in some states. Leads in other states are moving, but it's all going to come down to turnout. We have enthusiasm off the charts, and I want you to get out there, and you've got to believe, even if you have to do visualization and picture election night and us declaring victories, that's what it's going to take. Do that. It helps. I've done it. I picture a lot of great things happening November 6th, that night. And yesterday we covered a little bit about Elizabeth Warren, the DNA test. Well, as you might imagine, late night comics, of course, covered it. So let's do a couple of quick clips. Here's first Stephen Colbert on Liz Warren's Native American ancestry test and Donald Trump having promised to give $1 million if it came back positive, and now he's reneging. Let's hear clip number 1.
You cared so much. You once offered $1 million to charity if Senator Warren proved she was part Native American, a fact reporters reminded you of today.
Mr. President, you said you paid $1 million to charity.
I didn't say that. You better read it again.
Oh, we don't have to read it. Luckily enough, we're going to have somebody read it for us.
Let's say I'm debating Pocahontas, right? I promise you I'll do this. I will take, those little kits they sell on television for $2? Learn your heritage. We will take that little kit and say, but we have to do it gently. Because we're in the Me Too generation, so we have to be very gentle.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there just to point out that Trump went out of his way to stuff a Me Too joke into the middle of his racist tirade. It's like he's making a turducken. That's just all turd.
Just all turd, my friends. And I love that he brought that up, Colbert, and I tried to make that point yesterday, that Donald Trump in that clip did more than just have a racist slam against Liz Warren. He also took on the Me Too movement because there's no president who has been more openly sexist than Donald Trump. And here is last night, Trevor Noah on The Daily Show on the very same issue about Donald Trump reneging on paying the $1 million that he had promised. Let's hear clip number 2, please.
If I were Elizabeth Warren and I did end up in a nomination, like if I was the nominee for the Democrats and I was debating Donald Trump, you know when they do the walkout music at the debates, they go, please welcome Donald Trump, and it's like da 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 ba 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 ba, and you walk out to that boring music. If I was Elizabeth Warren, I would make sure that when I walk out, it's like, and please welcome the Democratic nominee Elizabeth Warren, and be like, bitch, better have my money. Now see now by Jay, pay me what you owe me. Don't act like you forgot.
So there you go, Trevor Noah telling Liz Warren how the way to come out of the debate and slam him. And today Donald Trump went more on that. I mean, I don't really care at all about Elizabeth Warren's Native American history, especially not 21 days in front of a midterm. I care about Donald Trump and the GOP trying to take away coverage of pre-existing health care, pre-existing conditions, which is going on right now in a Texas federal court. We covered it last week. 20 attorney generals and the Department of Justice all lined up to take away your coverage for pre-existing health medical conditions right now as we speak. I care about Donald Trump's new family separation policy. It looks horrible. You know, I care about a tax scam that is adding so much to the deficit, which means they're going to come back and cut Medicare and Medicaid and food stamps to make up for giving rich people and big corporations a massive tax cut. That's what I care about. And I also care about Donald Trump's sexism, his bigotry, and his racism. What's remarkable is that you have Republicans who go on TV, and when they're asked about Trump's bigotry, racism, or his sexism today, we'll get into how he attacked Stormy Daniels, this is their answer. I wouldn't have chosen those words, or I wouldn't have used those words. See, they have no problem with the sentiment. They just like it to be a little bit more subtle, because the GOP for decades has spewed dog whistle, racist politics, sexist garbage, and Donald Trump is just much more plain speaking. They don't like it. They like their bigotry, racism, sexism a little bit more adorable, a little bit more subtle. So what did Trump do today in the world of bigotry and racism? Well, he tweeted about Stormy Daniels, and if you didn't follow it, last night, a federal judge in California dismissed Stormy Daniels' defamation lawsuit against Donald Trump and awarded attorney fees to Trump's lawyers. So today, Donald Trump took a victory lap by not just talking about the lawsuit, but tweeting to his 50+ million followers that Stormy Daniels has a horse face. Horse face. Horse face. Yes. Yes, the man who's in the White House called a woman publicly to millions of people and mocked her face and said she had a horse face. It's not surprising. Donald Trump's a scumbag. We know that. Donald Trump a few weeks ago made fun of Dr. Christine Ford so his audience could laugh at a sexual abuse victim. And they laughed. They sure laughed because they love that cruelty. Donald Trump has given them permission to be cruel. And he's given them permission to be sexist. Don't forget, during the campaign, Donald Trump mocked Carly Fiorina's face, saying, look at that face. How could a face like that be president? And that's where we are. Donald Trump's open sexism, and the Republicans in Congress are silent. Silent, silent, silent. And at least one, here's Tara Setmeyer, who I like a lot. Tara was an anti-Trump Republican, has remained anti-Trump, even though they nominated Kavanaugh and got him confirmed. And here's Tara a short time ago on CNN, really going after the enablers of Donald Trump, which are the GOP members of Congress who are silent. And even if you're an independent, you're listening, you need a check on Donald Trump. We need one because the Republicans in Congress are not. They're a doormat, and that's not healthy. One-party rule of all the chambers and the president and the judiciary is not what our founding fathers intended. It's not what we believe this nation should be. You need some separation of powers. So here's Tara Setmeyer, clip number 4 we'll jump to.
Character matters, and when you demonstrate you have a character deficit, you just don't all of a sudden become some virtuous person who no longer engages in petulant schoolyard bully kinds of fights. This is what Donald Trump does, and I blame the enablers. I blame the people who make excuses for this and cheer him on, the people who are clapping like seals behind him at these rallies where he does these kinds of things, and that those people are more responsible because he should be held accountable for this. That's fine if he's doing things that you like and we have some great economic news and people are back to work. That's wonderful. Except The President of the United States is using the Oval Office and the office of the presidency as a literal bully pulpit to behave like a child without consequence. That's where the outrage should be. The people who continue to cheer him on and not hold him accountable for this.
And that's a Republican, Tara Setmeyer. She worked for Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. She worked on Capitol Hill. She's a Republican consultant. She's been very anti-Trump because she believes that the Republican Party should not be one that is emboldening and enabling sexism and racism and bigotry. And that's where we are right now. So I was happy to hear Tara do that. I like Tara very much. And there's a reason when you hear Donald Trump, what is going on. There's a reason why 63% of women in a recent poll said they're going to vote Democrat on November 6th. And only 33% say they're going to vote Republican. This was just a week ago. And if that ends up being true, if only 33% of women vote for Republicans, let me give you some historical context. That'll be the smallest amount of women voting for Republicans in a midterm in, guess how long? Did you guess ever? Ever. That's exactly what it would be like. That's what Donald Trump has done. He has alienated women to the GOP in ways we have never seen before. And I'm hoping they pay a price. And I'll tell you why. It's not just politics, folks. And I say that sincerely because I'm a progressive first. I'm a Democrat second. As a progressive, I want to see our society move forward and on cultural norms. And the idea of sexism by people in power, like they're children on a playground, but they're presidents and they mock a woman's face and they demonize a victim of sexual assault. You know how you change that cultural norm? By voting out Republicans, because that sends a message that if you're silent again when someone's spewing this garbage, you're going to lose your job. That's the key. Because what we see in politics is this. Success is mimicked and failure is run away from as much as possible. And that's where we are. So cast a vote. Democrat, I know you are. If you feel down at any time, just think about Donald Trump's bigotry, racism, and sexism and his corruption. Whatever moves you the most. To me, it's so much of it is a sexism that disgusts me to no end. And we're seeing a lot today. A lot of people speculate that he attack Stormy Daniels' face and call her horse face because he's trying to distract from Saudi. I don't think so. Trump did about 10 tweets this morning, touched on everything from Elizabeth Warren to Saudi to this. It's just whatever comes out of his head and goes to his little thumbs and he tweets out. And whatever happens, happens. He just likes being the center of attention. In this case, he has nothing to lose because 2020 is his election. But 21 days of the GOP election for Congress. I am so hoping in 22 days when I come on air on November 7th. We're going to be here live, by the way, November 6th, going really late into the night. I think I'll be here till midnight. And I think Michelangelo's going to stay around and others. And you're going to hear a whole bunch of hosts. And we'll promote it a lot. But I think coverage might go to 2 or 3 in the morning Eastern time that night. But the next day, November 7th, I don't care how tired my voice is, how scraggly I am. I will be awake. I will be alert. I will be excited if we've taken the House back. And I think we're going to take a bunch of governorships. No one's talking about the governorships. Taking them back ends partisan gerrymandering on the right as we go into the top of the decade. So this is really big. This has a chance to change the country for the best. So let's take a break. Tonight, we don't have as much time. We're going to take calls when I come back. We have Congressman Ted Lieu on the bottom of the hour. Then we'll take a few calls after him. Then Rula Jabril will be here second hour in studio. We'll try to take a couple of calls here or there. In the third hour, Danny Savalas will try to take some calls. But I'll take your call. Let's take a break. I'll come back, take some calls. I'm going to have Congressman Ted Lieu. Be right back right after this.
Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to save our country.
Don't go anywhere. This is the Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127. You've heard Dean's thoughts. Now it's your turn. 866-99-SIRIUS. 866-997-4748. This is the Dean Obadala Show
on Sirius XM Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala Show, live Tuesday, October 16th. We're going to go take some calls at the bottom of the hour, around the bottom of the hour. Congressman Ted Lieu from California, I'm sure you know him, great guy, does a great job on cable all the time. He's a great legislator. Will be joining us for a little bit, then we'll take calls right after him, so don't go away. He's probably only going to stay with us for about 10, 12 minutes. But let's go. Here's Dennis from Chicago, who's been calling for nights to make a point here. Dennis, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm pretty good, Dean. Hey, thanks. Well, here's my point. All this stormy stuff and all this other stuff, in the end of the day, pales in comparison to Trump's prima facie evidence of income tax fraud.
And you're talking about the big New York Times article. It was an amazingly
right. Oh, you bet I am. There's good evidence of his father's estate tax fraud, his father's income tax fraud, Donald's income tax fraud, Donald's lies about his lack of inherited wealth. He inherited $400 million. Oh, and he persuaded his peers to sell the family real estate empire to avoid bankruptcy. He sold it at a discount of $200 million. There's prima facie evidence of income tax fraud.
But what are we going to do with that, though, Dennis? I agree with you, but what do we do with it in that it's either going to be a crime and the prosecutor's going to look into it if the statute of limitations is not run, or not? Because I think people who don't like Trump already know he's a criminal, a corrupt, and a scumbag. To me, the reason I bring up Stormy Daniels is not, and I have nothing against Stormy, I'm not demeaning her by saying it's not about Stormy, it's about sexism. And to me, that's what's so upsetting about Trump, and demeaning women, again, by their face, by either their story, because they're a sexual abuse survivor in the case of Dr. Ford, about mocking even Ted Cruz's wife during the campaign. He made fun of the way she looked. And this is a vile piece of garbage, Trump. So to me, it's really about that. Upsets me so much.
None of those things will put him in jail.
Right, but that's going to be.
I don't know if he can even. In jail.
I agree, but Dennis, I don't have. To me, what you're saying about legal argument here, a lot of the stuff is very remote in time, years and years and years ago. I'm not sure, and I think New York State's looking into it from what I heard. But I'm not sure if the statute of limitations is run or not, and that takes a time. That's going to take a process. We have an election in 21 days. And so make your case. Why should this matter for 21 days?
Does not have a statute of limitations.
Okay. Well, they're going to look into it. I mean, there's nothing. I wonder. Let me ask you, Dennis. I was going to ask people. So what issue do you think would be the one Democrats should be harping on for the next 21 days as we go into this big midterm election, the most important election of our lives?
Well, that's a good question. I think all the things that you mentioned, and your listeners should be aware of the details of his income tax fraud. They should know that.
Right. And I agree. We didn't cover it much because it was so much going on. I think during Kavanaugh came out, and it was and it's something I saw you the other night, and I meant to take your call, and I couldn't. And I'm like, it's an important issue. But it's not a visceral mover 21 days out from an election. It's a real issue that the law has to do its job.
You're right. You're right. It is not an emotional issue that will rouse the voters prior to this upcoming election. But I think it is something long-term could put this sad sack out of office.
Well, interesting, on the other screen during the commercial break.
No statute of limitations.
And Dennis, by the way, and MSNBC had reporting tonight, right before I came on air, that Michael Cohen apparently spoke to Mueller's investigators for 50 hours about stuff. So once the midterm's over, Robert Mueller's doing what prosecutors do in the DOJ. They don't do anything close to the election. Now, we all know James Comey did 2016. We understand that. But generally, they don't. So he's just being quiet right now. After the election, we might get a report from Robert Mueller. But I think things are going to wind up soon. And he's still doing his job. And I love the fact that he's doing it quietly and Trump's not even talking about it. Today he tweeted one thing sort of about it, but he's been kind of quiet. And that's great. Mueller's almost done with his job. And folks, I say this, Dennis, with confidence. Robert Mueller's report's going to recommend some articles of impeachment. I'm not sure exactly which ones. I have my predictions of what they should be as a lawyer, and I've gone through it. I think you're going to see those, and I think he's waiting for a Democratic House to control to make sure we can do it. But all right, Dennis, I promise you some night we're gonna cover that more in more detail.
Okay, there's a lot of stuff in that big, long article that's, I think, really worthwhile talking about. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it. Thanks for flying in. It's important. And you know what I love the last few nights, people were calling up saying about their Democratic candidates for Congress and telling us, and many have emailed, and we're going to have many coming up. By the way, tomorrow I'm not here, but it's a scheduled day off. I'm going to be part of a conference on countering violent extremism. We're going to play a lot of it on the show after Election Day. But Tina Dupuy will be here. But right now, very happy, and everyone's staying whole, but I'm very happy to have back on the show Congressman Ted Lieu, a Democrat representing California's 33rd Congressional District, serves on the House Judiciary Committee, the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman Lieu, how are you? Nice to be back. I appreciate you coming back on the show tonight.
Thank you, Dean.
So, by the way, we had Dave Padgett on, and I'm not sure if you remember his name specifically, but he's the evangelical pastor who's on the bus going around the nation now, and he's a progressive pastor, and he brought up your name, that you gave them some support and some help, and he spoke really highly of you last night on the show. What a great guy, though. And he made the point that you were saying that Democrats need to reach out to people of faith. It shouldn't be somehow you can't be a progressive and a person of faith at the same time.
That's correct. And first of all, Vote for the Common Good is doing a terrific job going around the country, and they're literally doing the Lord's work. And my view is we should not have an entire party, the Democratic Party, simply not discuss faith.
Right.
I think Americans are very religious people in general, and it's part of our history, and to simply ignore it is just a bad idea, and it doesn't deal with the everyday reality of what most people are thinking.
Right, and look at Dave. He's a pastor and progressive, and made a great point about that his selling point to fellow evangelicals, if you really believe in the teachings of Jesus Christ and Christianity, the Democratic Party, which is helping people in need, is the party that you should be supporting. And he actually said, and reject Trump and the GOP because they're not. I think what a great message for a fellow evangelical. I'm not evangelical, but for him to make to his fellow evangelicals about this. It could move people.
Absolutely. If you look at the teachings, ripping away kids from their parents is very anti-Christian. It's actually anti-any faith.
Yes.
And I just think it's important for Democrats to talk about faith. I mean, certainly you don't have to impose on other people, but you should talk about your own journey and your own experience. And I think voters would actually like to hear about that instead of us just ignoring this critical element in many people's lives.
Yeah, I agree. So, Congressman, let me ask you about some of the top news of the day the last couple of days. One was today Donald Trump took to Twitter to call Stormy Daniels, a woman, a horse face to his 50-plus million Twitter followers for, I guess, their enjoyment and laughs. What's your reaction to that?
It's embarrassing for the President of the United States to engage in that kind of language. He is supposed to make Americans proud. He does not do that. He makes it hard for parents to teach their kids how to act appropriately. I have 2 kids, and he's basically demeaning himself in the grand office of the president.
It's unreal. How come we don't hear Republicans in Congress speaking out? A few weeks ago, Donald Trump demonizing Dr. Christine Ford, a woman who clearly was a victim of sexual abuse, and he mocked her for laughs of his crowd. Now we have attack on Stormy Daniels, a woman's face. This sexism is just rampant by him, and the GOP is beyond silent. At this point, it seems complicit in my view.
They are, and if people don't like that, they have the chance to change the makeup of Congress in about 3 weeks. Right. And I think you're going to see their 1992 Year of the Woman times 100.
And that's a great point, and something we covered on the show. The year after the Clarence Thomas, Anita Hill hearings was known as the Year of the Woman, as they elected more women than ever. And I just wrote for the Daily Beast last week about polling showing that forget a blue wave, it's going to be a pink wave, as women are showing 63% of women in a recent poll, so they're voting for Democrats, only 33% for GOP. And if that holds true, that'll be the lowest support for the GOP by women in a midterm ever in their history of polling midterm elections and doing it. So it's remarkable what's going on. I'm glad women are watching. So let me ask you, what's your reaction to Saudi Arabia's apparent killing of Jamal Khashoggi?
It's pretty clear to me that Khashoggi was murdered. Based on public reporting, you had about 15 people fly from Saudi Arabia into Turkey. You had, from based on public reporting, a bone saw involved.
Yes.
You generally don't interrogate someone with a bone saw unless you intend to kill that person. And I think Saudi Arabia has a lot of explaining to do. And again, based on public reporting, it appears they're going to acknowledge that he, in fact, was killed. I think what they're going to say is that was unintentional. So we'll see what the actual report is from Saudi Arabia. I think it's completely unacceptable that the President of the United States is defending Saudi Arabia at this point. He really ought to wait for the facts and the reports to come out and not simply be a parrot for Saudi Arabia's press releases.
And you're talking about, I imagine, President Trump yesterday saying might be rogue killers, which is the story that they're trying to peddle from Saudi. What do you get the sense, Congressman Lieu, about Donald Trump calling the media the enemy of the people and going after the Washington Post so viciously over time? Do you think the Saudis in their own calculations go, look, Trump hates the media, he hates the Post, so if we kill a Washington Post reporter, who really cares?
Let me answer that, but let me first talk about how insane Donald Trump's rogue killers comment is.
Please do.
I'm on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I've had the chance to simply visit a lot of different embassies. These are highly secure places. You wouldn't have rogue killers wandering around an embassy. That just does not happen. So the notion that the president could even be thinking that is just completely absurd. Now, in terms of why would the Saudis miscalculate like this and go ahead and murder a person who was actually a U.S. green card holder, I think it's because the Saudis have seen no consequences to all the other things they've done. They've been in this war in Yemen where they have hit a lot of civilians with airstrikes nowhere near military targets, such as at wedding parties, funerals. Recently, they hit a school bus that had over 40 children in it, and there's been literally no consequences to Saudi Arabia. You see them take aggressive action in other places with no consequences. And then they see the President of the United States attacking the news media. So it is not surprising they figured they could just go ahead and kill Khashoggi without any consequences. They severely miscalculated in this case.
Do you think the fact that Trump has such long-term ties, there was great reporting today in various outlets, CBS had a great one showing back to 1991 when Trump was teetering on personal bankruptcy, he sold his yacht to Saudi billionaire bin Talal. And then a few years later, Trump was suffering and other Saudi investors came through to help him, $325 million. And it goes through the year after year where the Saudis were there for him. And then he also bragged. We have that famous clip from 2015 in the campaign where he said, well, I sold them condos for millions of dollars. Do you think they thought they had this business relationship with him that they can do whatever they want?
It wouldn't surprise me if that's something that they thought. But if you look at this entire first 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency, it's generally been Trump first, America second. He's always put his interest and that of his family above our country, which is one reason why we absolutely need to change the makeup of Congress in November. Because if we flip the House or Senate, we will get Donald Trump's tax returns, and the American people will see if there are foreign influences on their president.
And it's extremely important. And let me ask you about the election. We're 21 days from today. We've had so many great candidates on, many from California. We had Harley Rhoda on from your state. We had Amar Kampa-Najjar on. We had Andrew Jans on. And across the nation, Democrats running. What is your sense? You're going around the country, I'm sure. You're talking to Democrats. You're talking to the grassroots. What's your sense, can you share, of the excitement and energy in the grassroots of the progressive out there around the nation?
So thank you. My colleagues last year elected me as a vice chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the DCCC, and we are targeting about 100 races. When we announced that, people thought we were crazy. And then we won the Conner Lamb district in western Pennsylvania, a district Donald Trump had won by 20 points. And then folks thought, okay, maybe you're not so crazy anymore. So on election night, we have about 60 to 70 races that are all sort of close within the realm of possibility. And then if there's a really large wave, we could win more. If there's a small wave, we could not take back the House. So It's very dependent on who does that one thing that we need people to do in November, which is to vote. And at this point, it's just sort of a guess at what turnout will be. But all the enthusiasm does seem to be mostly on the Democratic side.
Yeah, in the Democrats I've spoken to around the country, it's been really great to hear the excitement from California, New Jersey. I mean, I had Mikey Sherrill on in Jersey, who I think is going to win there. We had Tom Melenkowski on from Jersey, another Democrat running there. Countless around the nation running. And, you know, they're feeling it. They're seeing on the ground something they've not seen in those districts. Because those districts were a lot of the swing ones where Hillary won by 1 or lost by 1, but there was a Republican incumbent there. So if we come out, we win. Last thing, Congressman Lou, what do you think Democrats, it's a closing argument. We're 21 days out. You're vice chair of the DCCC. What should be the closing argument? Is it district by district, or is there a nationalized argument we should be making?
Both, but there are 3 issues that completely dominate the polls in terms of how much voters care about it.
Okay.
One is health care.
Mm-hmm.
The American people have seen the Republicans sabotage our health care. They've seen them file lawsuits to deny people pre-existing conditions coverage. Americans are very aware that Republicans are trying to increase health care costs and take away health care from people. So all our candidates are talking about that. Second, corruption. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a Green Party voter or an independent, you don't like corruption. You don't like to see cabinet officials milking taxpayer funds for first-class jet travel, or putting in $139,000 for your office doors. You also don't like to see people use their office for private gain. Mm-hmm. So corruption has been resonating, and if Democrats take back the House, we're going to put in strong anti-corruption laws and campaign finance reform. And then we're focusing also on infrastructure. I think we need to rebuild our bridges, highways, and there's currently a $4 trillion infrastructure deficit. Mm-hmm. We absolutely need to do this to create good, high-paying jobs. So those are some of the issues we're talking about nationally. And then locally, right, Harley Ruda can talk about how Dana Rohrabacher has been totally awful for the environment in the coastal district. And then, our candidate, Abby Finkenauer in Iowa, can talk about how the tariffs are hurting her constituents. So then they can build upon that national message.
That's great. And by the way, are Democrats bringing up that right now in a federal court in Texas, there's 20 new GOP attorney generals plus Trump's DOJ trying to get rid of our coverage for pre-existing medical conditions? I mean, as we are talking right now, Congressman Lou, they're trying to gut what is so popular and what would change Americans' lives for themselves and their families horribly if they are successful.
Absolutely. We're making that argument. We're having our candidates make that argument. Great. I think it's one reason you had Donald Trump feel compelled to write this totally misleading op-ed in USA Today last week on health care.
Right.
He realized Republicans were getting crushed on this issue, and I think it's going to continue to resonate all the way till Election Day.
That's great. That was an amazing piece of fiction Trump wrote, and I can't believe it got published. But Congressman Lou, thanks very much for your time. I appreciate you. Always do a great job. You're a great advocate for our party out there, and look forward to chatting with you again.
Thank you. Anytime, Dean.
Take care. Let's take a break, folks. Come right back. We'll take your calls right to the top of the hour right here on the Dean Obadala Show.
Every day between now and Election Day, ask yourself, what am I doing to help the resistance win? The stakes are so high, we cannot take off a single day.
The Dean Obadala Show.